Jonathan Worsley here, chairman of Bench Events. I'm here at the wonderful Crown Plaza in Riyadh for the G20 summit. And yesterday we had a fantastic session with Jalil Mekouar, but unfortunately his moderator wasn't there the entire time. So I thought whilst I was in Riyadh, I would take the opportunity of having a few extra words with Jalil on what he's doing at inHovate. So Jalil, welcome. And I'm sorry you didn't get to tell your entire story yesterday, but it's nice that I've got you now that we can show this around.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thanks for the opportunity to give it a second shot.
Give it a second shot, exactly. So Jalil, founder of inHovate Solutions, just give us a little background. How long have you been going for?
So the company was set up end of 2019. So it's been just a little short of a year that we've been operating and mostly developing the platform that we are set out to develop. And prior to that, I spent a little short of a year in research and development, going around the world, preparing for the development of the platform.
Okay, and the purpose of this platform, of course, is to extract data on the hotel industry and the tourism industry, really, isn't it? In order to help leaders make better decisions going forward.
That's correct, and really that stems from my few years industry experience. I've spent about 30 years on the hotel operator side, on the investor side and ownership, but also on the advisory and asset management side. And one common denominator that I've noticed in those 30 years is that how we are in our industry, we are data rich, we're very rich, we actually data billionaires, but we are information poor. We don't really use this data for a number of reasons. First main reason is this data is always very, very siloed, and each one piece of data remains and stays in its own box. So you have data that comes from different various systems in hotels, and you could have dozens of systems in hotels. But also there is a wealth of data out there and information that comes from the outside world, outside to our hotels, but outside to our industry, even outside to the tourism industry. And it would be socioeconomic information, it would be weather information, it would be airport arrivals, could be a number of different types of data that would be amazing to be used in our industry to make better decisions and enriching our information. We can even create our own data by surveying our customers in hotels or in the destinations. There is data that comes from ministries of tourism. There's data that comes everywhere. I mean, we are in a data world as we speak, and I think the fourth industrial revolution is really the data revolution in my view, and we are not benefiting from that in our industry. So not only using our internal data, let alone the information outside. So our objective, ambition, and main aim is to start with the data, convert the data into information, then that information converted into knowledge. That knowledge helps make the right decision. Those decisions will help take the right action, and then these actions will hopefully produce results and performance. And really what we're doing with inHovate as a platform is to provide a holistic solution, and that provides this whole food chain, I would say, starting from basic raw data all the way to action planning and monitoring of performance, monitoring of the results, and creating transparency and creating responsibility out there for the different constituents. So one of the key things in our industry as well is that not only is our information siloed, but we are also, I think, siloed from a functional perspective. So you have rooms department and food and beverage and this and that. And we're also quite siloed from the structural side of things, as in operators versus owners. I mean, how often, even in your conferences, we've had those big debates about operator versus owner type of thing. And then you have the franchisee-franchisor relationship. And then all of these are silos And each one of those constituents have their own set of data and information that they live with and live by, and use that for their relationship with one another. So how about if we had one platform where everybody would have access to similar information, first of all, on a timely basis, second, with the right accuracy, third, with the right depth and the right breadth. And if you had all of that, and those different constituents can look at the same thing, interpret it the same way, speak the same language, then they wouldn't have to argue anymore on certain things. They just have to argue on facts, as opposed to arguing on interpretations and so on. So that's sort of the objective as well.
I certainly understand the problem here for the industry. There's probably a lack of data to make sound decisions on, but isn't the problem that there's really just too much data? I mean, I remember when I launched the conference bench, and it ended up just being too much information for the industry when you're looking at revenue per square meter, revenue per cover, cover revenue per space, all these different ways of analyzing the data. Actually there was too much information, so therefore it didn't work.
You are just hitting the nail on the head. You're absolutely right in that there is too much information, except that I would complete the sentence, for a human. There's way too much information for a human to interpret and for a human to analyze. And we get complete paralysis by analysis. We get overwhelmed by, there's either too much to look at or actually not enough. But what if there was something, a machine, in this case machine learning, in this case artificial intelligence, that would help decipher and help, analyze for you, and then help you extract what is it that I need to look at today? Because again, having been on different sides of the industry, I was a third of my career was on the operator side, and then on the investor side, or ownership, and then on the asset management and advisory side. And in every side, you look at different metrics. And for that matter, on Monday, I could look at a certain metric, and on Tuesday at a different metric, even if I was in the same role. Why? Because maybe your revenue per square meter is more relevant in this particular situation, and the following day, your RevPAR is more important, and the next day is how you did on Wednesdays in this market segment, which is more relevant. So it is, all this information may become relevant to a certain person at a certain point in time, depending on the certain situation. And what happens is then these people will go and dig and try to find their own gold, as opposed to having the gold mine right here, organized and structured, and then you can go in the drawers. And by the way, there's a robot or something that will tell you, by the way, today this is relevant because I've gone through these millions and billions of records, and these are the 10 things you need to know, which you wouldn't know unless you had dug yourself and tried to get this gold powder that you're going to put together into one big piece. And that is not possible. And at the time, maybe I think at that time, AI was not what it is today.
So the magic sauce here is AI. And we all say artificial intelligence, but what does that really mean? Because I mean, that's obviously crunching all the numbers, and surely that takes a huge amount of server power as well. And people need the information instantaneously, don't they, to make it useful? They want it immediately. How does that all come together?
Yeah, very, very good point. First of all, it's not only artificial intelligence, it's artificial intelligence with human intelligence, because there is, the artificial intelligence or the systems can go only to a certain distance, to a certain way. I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Kasparov once said that there's no one human being that can beat him at any chess game all the time. And there's no one software or computer that can beat him at any game all the time. However, a very good software with a very good person together, they can beat me every time. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about combining data science, because it is a science, which is all statistics and data science, with the right technology. So what you were talking about is storage, compute power, speed of accessing this information, cleaning up, organizing, etc. With the human intelligence, which is our as hoteliers, the users' experience and expertise. So in my in the last probably 15 years or so, everywhere I have been, I made a quick survey, and it was on the operator side, but it was also, again, in any one of those with advisory and asset management and ownership. And I calculated, taking time and everything, how much time does it take for people in my various teams for them to gather information, work on it. That means extract something that is meaningful, and then present it, and then convincing the people that what they are presenting is right. Well, interestingly enough, the collection and the putting together is from 70 to 80% of the time. 70 to 80% of the time that a computer can do for you, you're wasting basically 70 to 80% of them. And you might be wrong because you're copying, pasting, taking this and using Excel and using XYZ. Right. So imagine you're freed up all of a sudden, even if it was just 60% of your time, you freed it up. So you can do more, you can go deeper, and you can be smarter. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be analyzing anymore, but you're going to take much faster decisions and much better. From a technological perspective, of course, things will evolve, but we are at an amazing point in time where my mind is blown away. And I'll give you just an example. In my R&D period in the last year and a half, I've talked to a number of tech people, from the Silicon Valley to Ukraine to Japan. I've been everywhere. And interestingly enough, we looked at a proof of concept of a piece of software or development and it took, for some particular sort of queries, it took 15, 20 minutes. And I was telling the developers, this can't work. We don't have 15, 20 minutes. This was yesterday. Tomorrow we need it in much less than that. With a specific technology, looking at exactly the same query, querying millions and millions and millions of records, we went down to 3 seconds. From 15, 20 minutes to 3 seconds. I can't even imagine what goes into those circuits to get you that information in 3 seconds, but it's possible. So today it is absolutely possible to have the right compute power, the right speed, the right storage, because storing these terabytes of data is, just not too long ago, it would have been hugely expensive. Now, it's not that it's cheap today, but it's much cheaper and getting cheaper and cheaper. So the technology allows for that. And the combination with data science is critical, because technology is one thing, but then you have to have the right, well, data scientists are mathematicians. They are mathematicians and statisticians. And that's what they do. They look at stuff and say, is there a relationship between this and this? Let me run an algorithm, an AI algorithm. So it will let the computer learn from this kind of data, and then it's going to spit out something. And they're going to say, well, this makes sense, doesn't make sense. And you look at it point by point, case by case, or use case by use case. And by doing that, you solve the issues by going deep down into each one of the issues. A very good example is the revenue management systems. They use AI, some of them do now, the bigger ones, to predict your rates. There's no way a human will be doing a better job. But interestingly enough, there is still a large percentage of revenue managers that override the system. So the system tells them you should sell the room at $102 on Saturday next week. And there is up to 60, 70% of the time where revenue managers say, no, I know better.
Interesting.
I'm going to sell it at 200. So there is, I think, a reckoning also of the people to start to say, okay, what can I let the machine tell me? And I'm going to apply my knowledge, not override the machine, because then that defeats the purpose. But how can I add that? And we are learning that. We are, as an industry, we need to learn more of how to do that.
And I can see the crisis that we're going through now, perhaps the artificial intelligence, the data science may not work as effectively as during a sort of typical year, as it were, because who knows? I mean, because you don't really want to discount on rate right now because there's no demand anyway. So, don't touch rate.
Yeah, and there is another element which is critical, is that we look at the past very often to predict the future. That has been sort of our, as humans, and I guess we are no different in our industry. And we look a lot about, I mean, when you do forecast and budget, you look at, okay, how did I do last year? How did the market do last year? How do I think I will do this year? And in this time of let's call it, hopefully it's very soon post-pandemic, you can't do that, because the past doesn't have any or has very little meaning now. You got to rebuild the future. So that's where, and now it doesn't mean that the past is completely to be discounted completely, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. And that's where the human interpretation comes into play. Now you still look at your data, but having predictive models is key, because predictive models are not only based on the past, they're also based on future trends. You put in information such as what will be the forecast for economic growth in China, and this parameter and that parameter, et cetera, et cetera. So you, with a system like this, you are able to zero base yourself every day. You don't have to necessarily only rely on the past. You can learn from the past, but not rely on it only. And I very much like one of the, I think it's Jeff Bezos, if I'm not wrong, who says, I'm probably going to butcher what he said, but he says something like, every day is a new day type of thing, right? And it's like, don't look at the, and I think he wrote a book on this and so on and so forth. But that's exactly it, is how can we zero base ourselves all the time? Now, as humans, it's tough to do that, because you have to say, forget about the past. When my team was coming to me in my different other roles in my past lives, they'd come to me and say, well, budget is this, or forecast is this, and say, why? Well, last year we did this, and next year we think we want to do that. I say, why? And I said, what is our capability? What is our capacity? What can we get from that market? Look at what the market is and see how much percentage you want to take of that, what your share is, how are you doing vis-a-vis the rest, and what do you think you will be able to get, rather than what I got plus 5%, right? So I think we need also, there's a bit of paradigm shift. The crisis is very much helping us to do that, because we have no choice but to zero base ourselves.
But isn't the paradigm shift also to do with experiences as well and individuality? Because I think one of the issues we have in the hotel industry at the moment is this lack of communication with the consumer. Certainly I find it, but I don't know if everybody else does, but you don't get communicated to about the experiences that you could have when you're staying, so you can extend your stay. And often hotels will always be promoting themselves as opposed to the destination as well. So I suppose with this data, that then becomes, you can then have that more personalized service with your clients.
So it's so crucial what you just said. The one thing that, at the end of the day, we're looking at return on investment for sure, because a hotel is a piece of real estate. But the one central piece to that, there will be no return on any investment if we forget that the central piece is the customer at the end of the day. It starts and ends with the customer. That's where the revenue starts first. That's where the revenue comes back and reoccurs, right? And also that's where the expenses start, because that customer can come from different channels, can consume differently. If they consume, depends on what they like, what they don't like. Do they want to consume? Do they want not to consume, etc.? And I completely agree with you. I think although, I mean, we all say in the industry that we care about the customer and all of that, but I don't think we are using the right tools to do that. I'll take a very short example. If you don't have enough information about your own customer in your own hotel, you can get that information. I did that in a past life where we organized surveys and tried to understand the spending pattern of our hotel guests in these particular hotels within their destination. What were they spending? Where were they spending? How much did they have to spend, et cetera, et cetera. We created personas. We created spending patterns with additional information that we didn't have from our internal information from the hotels. And therefore, with that, we were able to better understand what our customers like. And what we did, we created programs for them. And you should see almost instantly messages on the likes of TripAdvisor and all of that. Fantastic, how did they know? And all of that. And it was really basic stuff. We paid the surveying, asked them, created patterns, and thought, okay, if you're a person coming from this country, roughly in this age bracket, and if you come with kids and family, and you're staying 5 days in here, you are quite likely that you would like this, this, and that. Well, instead of you asking for it, why don't we, propose that to you? Everybody wins. They're happy, you make more money, they come back, and so on. And that's, at the end of the day, just using the information correctly. And very often we hear, yeah, but I don't have the data. Well, if you invest in getting that data, it's not that you don't have the data, is what you don't know what to do with it. And that's really, to me, it's more, I'd rather have someone say, I have so much stuff, I don't know what to do with it, rather than have someone say, I don't have the information, because you lost before even you started the battle. And I think really it's all about, we talk about hyper-personalization, talk about personal experience. We talk a lot in our industry. We do a lot of nice talking, but in terms of converting, where do I get the real data behind it to convert that into meaningful action? And meaningful action is actually doing something about it. Okay, you like pizza, well, let me organize a pizza night and whatever. You like skiing, well, let me send you out for a free ski ride. You're going to be forever grateful. And then on the other hand, you'll be spending in here, and so on and so forth. That creativity based on interpretation of data is, we still have ways to go and ways to learn, I think.
No, exactly. But it's that opportunity to extend the stay of guests, because, if I knew here in Riyadh that I had the chance to go to the edge of the world today on a special trip, which is an amazing experience, I've done it, I would definitely stay an extra day to do that, or go to Alula, for example. There's a flight going out first thing, it'll be back in the evening. I would do it, and it's tailor-made for me. I don't have to think about organizing it, because I don't have enough time to do that when I'm back home. But now tell me, one of the challenges with all this, of course, Jalil, is privacy and accessing the data, because who owns the data and can you get access to it?
Yeah, very. That's again part of our siloed mentality in our industry. So I'm going to talk about privacy and vis-a-vis the customer, vis-a-vis the ultimate owner of the data or provider of the data is the person, right? Is the consumer. In that regard, I think the world is making progress, GDPR and all of that, and it's critical and important to be very compliant with that. Second thing is security. We've seen the biggest players in the world being hacked and all of that, and banks, or not only in our industry. And there is no compromise on top-notch security with regards to the data. But also one thing is that, one of the aspects of GDPR is, for example, to ask the customer, do you want to actively ask them, do you want to, give us access to your data if we provided, for us to provide you better services and all of that. I don't know the real numbers, but I know it was a high percentage of people that say yes, and especially young people. They say, yes, I'll give you access to my information, but only if I get something out of it. If you really provide me with, not only just because you're going to push stuff to me that I don't care about. So I think there is an agreement already from the consumer that they say, no problem, take my data, but first don't harass me. And second, give me something that you know is gonna match my preference. And then on the access to that information, there's this good old who owns the data and everything between the operator and the owner. I mean, that's why there are management agreements and there is clauses in there, et cetera, et cetera. But I know for a fact that it is in everyone's benefit to use this data the right way. So in my view, regardless of the terms of the management agreement, which by the way, there is very, very, very likely that owners would have access to the data because they own the data, since when the hotel is terminated, so let's say the management agreement is terminated or comes to an end, the owner owns that data. But again, I don't want to get into the terms of management agreements because that's a whole new debate with lawyers and all of that. But ultimately, the owner owns that data. Where they're restricted is using the data and doing certain things, because hotel chains don't want owners to do stuff with the data that they don't want them, because they are responsible vis-a-vis the customer at the end of the day. And that's where there is a smart, intelligent conversation between the owner and the operator. What's best for the business? What's best for all of us? How can we best use this information? And what's best for the customer? If using this data will improve the capture of your customers, you'll have more customers coming in. They will stay longer. They will come back more often. And every time they come, they will spend more money. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, let's make it happen. And let's work together to make it happen. And on top of that, all this revenue would be profitable revenue, because not every bit of revenue is as profitable as another. So you also want to make sure that that piece of revenue is profitable. I don't know any good owner or good operator in their right mind that would say, I want to walk away from extra money because my management agreement says this, or because the data is mine and I don't trust you. So I think that's a hurdle that is easy to overcome, again, to make the right decisions.
Yeah. So just looking at your business then, at the moment, you've got 100 hotels, you were saying, from over 11 countries that are now participating in sort of in the test phase. Is that right?
That's correct. So we're launching in 100 hotels in about 106 hotels in 11 countries, which we are very, very excited about. And we are launching our first module, which is the rooms revenue optimization module. So we're putting that in place in multiple countries, multiple markets. I think it's about 80 markets that those hotels are in. So it's a very, very exciting, prominent brands.
So I suppose one of your challenges is going to be managing the demand for from clients who are wanting to join inHovate, because I can only imagine that, why wouldn't the industry embrace this completely, unless there's competitors out there that I'm not necessarily aware of that are doing what you're doing. I think they're doing certain elements of what you're doing. You're trying to capture everything. I think the others capture different verticals in terms of data. I mean, I know it was Snapshot also were involved in this game for a while, weren't they? I don't know what happened to them,
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. So Snapshot decided to stop their operations, I think in June, and they were mostly focusing on the room side, and they were a business intelligence platform only for the rooms revenue. So the only data they were capturing was from the PMS, property management system. They were also capturing data from STR and from, I think, the likes of OTA Insight, but it was focused only on room revenue, full stop. Our positioning and our ambition is to really connect the dots. So from top to bottom, so from room all the way down to expenses and to return on investment. So there's a whole big investment part that is very, very important, because it's nice. How do you convert that sort of operational performance into investment performance? So that's also, so we're really starting from the sort of all the way from the revenue all the way down. So that's, if you want to call it, like horizontally from what end to what end. But also that would not be possible if we were not looking at it holistically from all the different verticals that you mentioned, the rooms, the food and beverage, the wellness and spa, the leisure and entertainment, etc., all the different components within the hospitality industry, and I would call them the sub-verticals within the hospitality vertical. And that's the key is the connection, the correlation that you can derive from one thing to another. Example, the data and the information you have from your point of sale system when someone goes to a restaurant and consumes, you don't necessarily know who that person is. So if that person actually posts or charges that restaurant bill to their room, all of a sudden, if you connect the dots, you will know that that person, Jonathan Worsley, is staying in room 421. He just had a steak and a Coke and a buffet, this and a dessert, that, etc.
Hold on a sec, Jalil. How the hell did you know I was in room 421? That's spooky.
Data.
Is that human or is that AI? No.
That's the human intelligence. So once you connect, you make that connection, then I can find out where you booked from, where you live, what you like, etc., because that whole connections come from another system, and so on and so forth. So you build those connections. If a hotel had a proper building management system and a proper smart building management system, then we could even potentially find out. Absolutely, we could find out what temperature you like your room at, when you left your room, how often do you go to the spa or the fitness if you use your card to access those, and so on and so forth. So it's through the connection of all of that that we will find out who you are, what you spend, what you like, what you don't like, and then we can enrich that with data coming from outside. So it's not only, I think, the beauty or the power of this is the interrelation and intercorrelation. It's not, so basically 1 + 1 + 1 = 100 rather than 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. It's really that positioning that we're looking at.
And of course, the whole energy efficiency and everything else,
big time.
But Jalil, listen, we've run way off schedule here because I mean, all my other sessions are now behind, and they're waiting to come on board, But this is often the problem with our virtual conferences. We have to stop quickly, whereas with this we don't. But anyway, I think 30 minutes is it's a really good snapshot what you've provided and what you're doing. Really exciting, actually. So, what are we now? We're in it's close to the election, isn't it?
Yes.
The
election.
It's the election. But in a year's time, 12 months time, how many hotels would your human brain estimate you would have in the system?
So in the first year, we're looking at onboarding about 500 hotels. Again, it's the first year because that's the first year where all the modules will come into play and the interrelation, etc. And I have to say also there is a bit of a paradigm shift as well. We want to hold the hands of our users and clients throughout, not only at the beginning. And at the beginning, we'll probably have to hold their hands more. Training is extremely important. Engagement is extremely important. We just don't want to throw in the software at them and say, well, now you work on it by yourself. So because of that, we want to be sort of realistic. So we're looking at probably the first year in having about 500 hotels, and then we're talking about thousands after that.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you.
It's a really important initiative for the hotel industry, and delighted you were able to join us for a short period yesterday at the Future Hospitality Summit here in Riyadh, and look forward to seeing you in Dubai. No, Toronto at the moment, aren't you? You're in Toronto, of course.
Yes.
Between Toronto and Dubai. Look forward.
Yes. I'm coming to Dubai again, back again very soon.
Travel's beginning again slowly, hopefully.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of. We're all very nervous about the winter. So today is beautiful sunny day, but we're a bit nervous about this second wave or not. So everybody's nervous around the world, I guess.
A little bit
In
nervous.
some
Yeah,
parts of the
Austria
world.
is
Yeah.
closed down for 12 months. So anyway, look forward to seeing you very soon. And thank you so much for joining me and for all of us learning a little bit more about inHovate.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I appreciate the opportunity and amazing event. The Future Summit was absolutely amazing, and really congratulations to your team and yourself for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, it was also with the help of the G20 Saudi Secretariat and the Ministry of Tourism, Saudi Arabia.
It was just one of a kind.
Great partnership.
So,
Great partnership. But thanks so much. Okay, Jill.
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jonathan. Bye-bye.